Hey everyone, Andrew Joseph Keith here. Today we're going to talk about why work with the human figure. These are just the reasons that I personally really like the figure and feel like it's something that's worth investing time in practicing and perfecting. So I made a little list of some pros and cons of working with the figure, and so I think it's appropriate to maybe start with the cons. One of the cons is very difficult. The figure, we see people every day. We see them every day, every hour. We're looking at people. We see ourselves, we see our hands, we see our faces, we see all these things every day. And so our mind is programmed to see when something looks right, when it looks natural, and then if something is even just a little bit off, we notice immediately. That's something that makes it very difficult working with a figure. That we recognize it, it's such a recognizable thing that if anything's off, if the hands are off, hands are very difficult. If the face is off, we just notice right away. It's just so obvious, and so that's one of the difficulties with working for the figure. The figure is difficult. Another reason that's maybe a con that I think most people that choose to work with abstract or extremely abstract that has nothing to do with the figure, that this is probably part of the reason why. It's just done so much, and so everybody does the figure. Everybody does figurative stuff. It's been done to death, and that's why it might feel that it's a little bit difficult to find an original idea when working with the figure. Another possible reason that a lot of people don't do it, it's like the people that buy Android instead of iPhones, is because everybody has an iPhone and they don't want to be like everybody else. And so those are some of the cons. It's difficult, everybody does it, it's really easy to see mistakes, it's kind of hard to get something that looks really good. Pros. Let's talk about some of those pros. I think, in my personal opinion, the figure, the human face and figure is the most expressive in art. I can feel emotion coming from a figure way faster than I can just seeing like colors on a canvas, just a mix of colors, even though sometimes those can express an emotion. But when it's the figure, our body language is so clear and so expressive that you can have a figure in a pose and just automatically just almost feel what they're feeling. I really like the expressiveness of the figure and how it can send a message without a ton of information. You can really see how the figure is feeling just by the body language, just by facial expression, how the hands are. It's a really cool thing that I enjoy. Figures can be beautiful. I think that when somebody makes a figure that just is like spot on and it looks really good, even if it's a little abstracted or something, if it feels right, it can be so beautiful. The figure can be really beautiful, and I really like making beautiful art. And so a lot of art nowadays doesn't really focus on beauty, it rather kind of focuses on sending a message about whatever it is. Some art is meant to make you feel uncomfortable or sad, or like something's off, a twist on reality, and it's not really there to be beautiful, it's there to kind of send a message. And so if you want your art to be beautiful, and if you want it to sell because it's beautiful, well, you're setting the bar really high, because that's what a lot of people try to do. And so for you to sell the art just because it's beautiful, you have to be really good. So that's a pretty high bar to shoot for. And I'm okay with that. I like a challenge, and so I try to make beautiful art that I feel I can connect with. Another thing that I think is a pro that was also con is that it's challenging, it's difficult, and that can be a pro because that means not everybody is going to be the best at it. Not everybody is going to be able to do a figure and make it look really convincing or have it be really anatomically correct. And so that gives you the chance to develop your skills. Another thing, even though it's the thing that's been done the most, I don't believe there's anything an artist or artists from the beginning of art have done more than the figure. The human figure is kind of the focus of art throughout the centuries. Even though it's been done the most, there's so many different ways to represent the figure, and there's so much variety in every single person. Every human being is a little bit different. So many ways to change and represent the figure just a little bit different than everybody else. And so even though it's been done to death, there's still a lot of opportunity for abstraction, for getting your own style, your own unique style when working with the figure. There's a lot of people that still focus on super realism, and I'd like to try that with sculpting and with the figure, because I think that's something that's really cool. It's really amazing when you see something that's made of stone that looks like flesh, or looks like those skin tones or hair, and how they can represent that. And so that's something that I think is super impressive, and I'd like to perfect, and hopefully my next piece will be a little bit more realistic. And there's also another thing that I really like to do is just abstracting the figure. And obviously there's an infinite number of ways that you can slightly abstract the figure. Some ways I think look really good, and some abstractions of the figure I look at and it's just kind of, doesn't really work for me, doesn't really look that good for me. So these are some of my thoughts on why I work with the figure. I love working with the figure. I love figurative art. I think that the figure is so expressive, and I want my art to center around something that I really feel is beautiful and is worth making art of, from, to whom, with.